She's still waiting for the clock. I'm getting a countdown.
To the podcast.
Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Hamilton on the celebration of our 135th anniversary Sunday. We welcome you here in the sanctuary and those who have opted to join us online. And for those who are joining us in person this morning, be sure your devices have been silenced. Our speakers this morning, we have many people who co-created our service this morning, all of whom we are very thankful for. And our speakers are Bill Johnston, speaking about our past, Reverend Jamie Boyce speaking about our present, and Marion Sewell-Sneed, chair of the 8th Principal Group, speaking about our future. Our music ministers are Rachel Derry, Cindy Carey, our choir with Jude Johnson. Our story for all ages will be read by Barb Wallace, who has a history as a religious educator in this congregation. Our tech team are Josh McIntyre, Eamon Bullock, and John Elliott. Ushers, Barb Wallace and Doreen Knoll. Worship associates, Susan and Ian Johnston, and greeter, Rita Mubarak. This morning, I would like to invite the members of our 8th Principal Work Group to come forward and join me while our chair, Marion, lights our chalices. We have us. If you can come forward to the podium now, those of you who are here, Janice, we have sickness has hit our 8th Principal Work Group, as it has many. So there are not a lot of us here this morning. Sarah? Tim is at Unicab. Beverly has a migraine. Nancy has COVID. Who else are we missing?
And you mentioned Tim.
Yes, and we've just been joined.
And Richard.
Richard Douglas Chin.
And Beverly.
Okay. So please join me in saying our chalice lighting words while Marion lights our chalice. And Sarah, can you light the children's chalice for us, please? Just click the children's chalice. Thank you. May this flame be our light of friendship and love. And our music chalice, yes, to celebrate our choir. Thank you, Marion. We begin this service by acknowledging that we are located on the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas, on the land covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. This was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This reminds us of the value of interdependence in the Article 2 revision of our Principles and Sources, which states, "We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. We regret that we have not always followed these values, and we pledge to find ways to make reparations for this oversight and work together to repair relationships." Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in your journey of faith or search for meaning, today you are one of us, and you are welcome. Our congregational mission includes our commitment to nurture one another, serve the community, and inspire action that heals the world.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Jamie Boyce. My pronouns are she, her, and it is my great honor and privilege to serve this congregation as its interim minister. As you may have noticed, this morning I'm wearing a mask and being cautious. I had a COVID exposure earlier this week, and in spite of 3 COVID tests over the weekend and plenty of rest, and testing negative for all 3 of those tests, it feels responsible to practice good precautions. Before we invite the call to worship this morning, I want to celebrate our upcoming spring festival. It feels appropriate on this anniversary Sunday to acknowledge the wonderful event we have in front of us. So, did you see Jen Wallace's amazing video last weekend? Did you miss it? Let's watch it again. We are so lucky to have Jen Wallace's imagination and expertise with us. It's taking us to the next level. If you would like to volunteer for Spring Festival, we have a number of opportunities. We need folks to help with setup, cleanup, help with baking for the bake sale, and if you'd like to walk with me and Gail Rappel, we're fun to go on walks with, to drop off flyers to our local neighborhood businesses. Please sign up after service. Joanne Deere will be at a table with sign-up sheets and information about volunteer opportunities. And don't forget to bring your gently used games and puzzles for our game and puzzle sale. You can drop these off on any given Sunday or during the week during Tim's office hours. As you've noticed, our theme is Garden Party, and our entire campus will be buzzing with excitement. It's a terrific way to launch into a new year of building beloved community in Hamilton. Let us center. Today, we gather to reflect on the past, the present, and the future of this congregation, and 135 years of Unitarian and Unitarian Universalism in the city of Hamilton. It is a wonder to behold how far you've come. Supported in those early days in 1889 by the Toronto and Montreal congregations, and your first minister, J.C. Hodgkins, at just 23 years old, a student joined you as your first minister. There is so much to celebrate this year: hope, resiliency, love, and dedication. Today, we celebrate the best of who we are and the liberating promise of our faith as we put love into action. And we say these words again: whoever you are, wherever you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. Let us open our hearts and minds as we gather for worship on this glorious day of celebration. Please rise in body or spirit for our first song, We Laugh, We Cry, number 354 in your gray hymnal. And we're going to do verses 1 and 4. Verses 1 and 4 this morning. It's a good tune, but it's a long one, so 1 and 4.
Be I'm Barb Wallace, and I'm telling your story for all ages today. And we do have a picture, I'm hoping, because I'm going to ask you guys about this. If we can get to the second picture, or the second slide there. There we are. This is the lady I'm going to talk about today. Who can tell me who she is? Lotta Hitchmanova, exactly. And what was the name of the organization that she started? Of Canada, right, which is now known as the USC, exactly. Pardon? Seed Change, actually it changed again, you're right, it is now called Seed Change. Okay, but for the bonus question here, what was the address that you were supposed to send your money to if you were going to donate to the USC? Spark Street, what was the actual? 56 Spark Street, yes, 56 Spark Street in Ontario, or Ottawa, Canada, right. So I also had a short video of access. You could actually hear Lotta's voice, very heavily accented, but that didn't actually happen. So you'll just have to imagine a lot of advertising for actually asking people to collect money and send money to the USC. I know many of you, well, some of you anyway, are too young to know much about Lotta and the USC. But those of us in the older generation here probably have Lotta Hitchmanova, Unitarian Service Committee, 56 Spark Street, Ottawa, imprinted somewhere in your files in your brain, because we heard it so often in the early 50s and up into the 60s. I can remember sitting on the floor in front of my black and white 17-inch TV with Georgie, my neighbor, after school, watching Gene Autry and Roy Rogers. And in those days, for the few young people that are here, I have to tell you, we didn't have the invention of a clicker. If you wanted to change the channel, if you wanted to turn the TV on and off, if you wanted to adjust the volume, you had to get up and walk to the TV and turn those buttons. It was a very difficult thing. Life was tough back in those days. It really was. But we did that, and the other thing that a clicker will do now that we couldn't have then is that you can't fast forward through the ads. So anytime there was an ad, we watched it. So Georgie and I watched a lot of the USC ads and Lotta Hitchmanova. So as I said, it's back there in the imprinting of my brain. The story of Lotta, and so her picture is there, and I don't know if any of the people that are closer here can see that she wore kind of a military uniform most of the time. But she has a hat, and what's on the hat? A chalice, right. And you can see on her here as well, there's another chalice. And I want to tell you the story today about Lotta Hitchmanova and the flaming chalice. So she was a true Canadian hero, and there's a book written about her called Lotta by Clyde Sanger, and this is from the introduction of this book, and it says, she was young, small, and a woman. She was a new Canadian with an unpronounceable name, and this was not a winning combination for 1945. But this did not deter Lotta Hitchmanova from launching the Unitarian Service Committee of Canada. She was born in 1909 in Prague, Czechoslovakia, and spent a lot of time during the Second World War. So she's from 09 to the beginning of the Second World War. She was educated, moved around. She was a well-educated woman, but when the war started, she spent the rest of the war trying to avoid the Nazis, and she was able to do that, but she traveled around an awful lot to various different countries in order to do that, and she could see how difficult life was, especially for the children, and she committed then to helping them in any way that she could. So after the war, she was able to immigrate to Canada, and within days of her landing in Ottawa, she was able to create the Unitarian Service Committee, and she started collecting money for them. And as soon as she had enough money, she, in that initial funding, she went back to Europe. She used the money that she had to buy supplies and a car, and she started driving through the small little towns of war-torn Europe. She was trying to get to the children who she knew needed help. The adults needed help too, but she was focused on the children. And she wanted a symbol, because the people of Europe spoke all different languages. She wanted a symbol that would just say to the children, this is a safe place to come, I've got help for you. And she chose the flaming chalice, and she painted it on the cars. Well, her car and any other cars that were working with USC at this point. And she knew then that the children, if they understood what that symbol was, because as soon as they did come out, she told more of them, and the word got around, that the flaming chalice meant safety and help. And they came out and they saw that, and they came to get the help that they need from this diminutive, loving woman. And for years, the USC collected dimes, because back in those days, a dime was a fair amount of money, and again, they were kind of aiming it at the children, so dimes and dollars. She went and spoke in churches. She was interviewed on radio and TV, and she collected all the money and then used it forever, in Europe first and then in other countries that needed her help. Again, focusing on the children. And this is a quote that was up from an interview that I heard from Anne Orfel, which was the minister in Peterborough for a while. And this is what Lotta talked about, the principles of the art of giving for her. And the first one is, if you're giving, you come as an open-minded friend and a good listener when you're offering help. And you say goodbye to a project when it can continue on its own. A really hard thing to recognize, I think, but that was her goal. And to serve with a personal touch, because the relationship of confidence must lift your aid beyond the realm of a simple business proposition and prove that you really care. A very interesting and enlightening view of aid, especially back in the 40s and 50s, but hopefully it's one that still endures. She died in 1990 after winning many awards, too long to list, but she did become the companion to the Order of Canada, and Agriculture Canada has named an oat after her. It's called A.C. Lotta Oat. Anyway, it's famous in many ways. So she's truly a Canadian and a Unitarian hero, and a member of the Unitarian Church in Ottawa. Marion and Jamie and I went to the church last year when we were in Ottawa, and just inside the front doors is a bronze sculpture of her, a bust of her, and you can kind of see where she was. She was a very honored member of the Ottawa Church, and she made the flaming chalice and the word Unitarian famous across Canada. Her hope was to make sure that the children understood that the chalice on her car meant safety, help, food, and care. I wonder if we can make that same message to ourselves and to others when we see the flaming chalice. Safety, help, food, and care. May it be so.
Good morning. My name is Bill Johnston. My pronouns are he, him. Sorry?
We're going to sing our children.
Oh, sorry.
Their costumes this week.
Oh, never mind.
Let us sing and celebrate our children and youth and sing them to their classrooms.
Hello, my name is still Bill Johnston. My pronouns are he, him, and my role this morning is to draw some lessons from our history. I was just kind of too excited to get up here. History is who we are and why we are the way we are. Who we are and why we are the way we are. I love that quote from historian David McCulloch. Our official church history began with our founding meeting on May 12, 1889. Ours was not a successful church for a very long time. Until after the Second World War, we were small and had few resources. We were rarely able to afford either a minister or a building, but never both, which kind of guaranteed we'd stay small and few resources. But two things are notable about that period. First, we established a relationship with Anshe Shalom Synagogue. We had a liberal vision of religion in common. Their rabbis often spoke in our church starting in 1896. Bernard Baskin, from 1950 to 2014, was by far our most frequent guest speaker. More important than that, we kept on. For more than 6 decades, we continued to provide an alternative religious experience, not one that I've ever thought was better or smarter than anybody else's. It just suited people skeptical of or unable to believe in other faith claims. We were small, but we were determined, and in the face of challenges, we were resilient. Since the war, we've been able to afford both ministers and buildings, and we've had ups and downs, but our struggles have been much more manageable. We nearly reached 200 members in the 1950s and 60s. We haven't been below 200 since 2000. We've been in our present building longer than 25 years, which is longer than we've been in any of our 14 locations. 14 locations, by the way, is a hint of early failure. Let me tell you one of my favorite stories out of our history. It took place in 1965 and 66 when we had about 190 members, so a bit smaller than now, but not much. We met in a church building that our church members had built on King Street East near Parkdale. Our minister at the time was Reverend Robert Hemstreet, who we'd ordained the previous year. Some of you may remember from your school days, and if you do, it's a painful memory, something that was called the strap. It was a 16-inch long piece of pliable rubber wrapped in red or black webbing for a range of misdemeanors or perceived misbehaviors. Children were made to hold out their hands while an adult struck their open palms with the strap one or more times at their discretion. In 1965, the strap was used almost 1,200 times in the Hamilton School Board at a time when they had 36,000 students. So that's one strapping for every 30 children. That year, our Social Action Committee decided that the use of the strap and other corporal punishments should be banned in Hamilton and across Ontario. They prepared a brief for a province-wide committee studying education, the famous Hall-Dennis Committee. The strap, our brief said, quotes, degrades the individual. It accustoms children to violence as a means of correcting errors. The brief added examples of excessive punishment. The brief was reported on in the Hamilton Spectator in early November 1965 and in the Globe and Mail the next day. The reaction was mostly negative to the brief. The director of the Hamilton Board of Education termed the specific charges absurd. The president of the Ontario Teachers Federation said abolishing corporal punishment would risk anarchy in the classroom. There were lots of letters to the editor, most of which were critical of our brief. Spectator editorials were dismissive of our concerns. The Hamilton School Board twice considered and twice rejected abolishing the strap, though never unanimously. When we presented our brief to the Hall-Dennis Committee in January 1966 in Toronto, the Globe and Mail published a front-page article on it. Canadian press picked up the article, and it was carried in newspapers across the country. The Toronto Star, the largest circulation newspaper in Canada, weighed in with an editorial that not only specifically mentioned our brief, but supported our pitch that we should abolish the strap. Now, our campaign might have ended there, but then a Beamsville father wrote to our committee about his 13-year-old daughter who'd been strapped twice on each hand for allegedly lying. That father took her to the family doctor, who wrote that 5 hours after the strapping, quotes, Both hands showed redness of the palms with evidence of bruising over the base of the left thumb. The committee finally had evidence that the strap was not just, as the chair of the Hamilton School Board put it, a tap on each hand. With that evidence, a CBC current affairs program ran a story on our brief in February 1966, including an interview with that Beamsville girl. Now, that program was This Hour Has 7 Days, and that program had an unbelievably large audience. On a typical Sunday, every third television in English-speaking Canada was tuned to that program. 2 years later, the Hall Dennis Committee reported, and it recommended abolishing the strap. It took until 2004 for the Supreme Court of Canada to finally rule that corporal punishment indeed could not be allowed in classrooms anywhere in Canada. Now, we've participated in many types of social justice programs. Our church is hardly unique in social justice or environmental commitments, but nothing we have ever done got us so much publicity or created such a thorough airing of an issue as that fight against strapping children. Now, we obviously can't claim that our actions directly led to the ending of corporal punishment, but change needs champions who help prepare the conditions to make it possible. Now, I need to note that not everyone in our congregation was totally delighted with all of this. There was criticism that the brief hadn't been approved by the congregation, although it had been authorized by the board. And a congregational discussion might have strengthened the pitch we made, especially through hearing from congregants who were teachers and who supported continuing to have the strap. It might have led to greater spiritual support, a greater sense that the congregation had the backs of our committee. It's a little puzzling that we didn't work with allies, because Reverend Hemstreet had worked together on educational issues with Rabbi Baskin. Our team was kind of confusing about whether or not we would ever provide the details to back up the specific examples of aggressive punishment that we made. A letter writing campaign might have countered the impression that most people actually favored the strap. And one other thing, Rachel Derry, Beverly Horton, Cindy Carey, and our choir have demonstrated the huge importance of music in our church and in its power to galvanize social movements. So perhaps our 1965 team could have used a theme song, something like the Supremes' hit from earlier that year, "Stop in the Name of Love." So, some lessons, mainly but not exclusively for social justice efforts. Lesson 1, we make mistakes. And therefore, self-righteousness isn't warranted. We are all implicated in evil systems, but neither should we be frozen by excessive caution, by seeking an impossible perfection. There were deadlines to meet in 1965. There always are. Study, then act, reflect, apologize where necessary, shift strategy as necessary, but then act and reflect again and again and again. Lesson 2, there will be conflict. Within our congregation, we can't celebrate making up our own minds and then expect nobody's going to disagree. As Linda Thompson has often reminded us, conflict isn't bad, indeed, conflict is good. Now, that certainly doesn't mean we haven't had instances in our past where we've handled conflict very badly. But good, frequent, transparent communication and open, clear processes are critical, so congregants feel they're heard, they know enough to trust their leaders. But also hearing disagreement, hearing as many different viewpoints as possible, helps us clarify and deepen our thinking. Lesson 3, when we take public positions, or frankly, when we do anything, there are risks, not least of criticism, as happened in 1965. I really admire the moral clarity and the courage the minister and the committee displayed in the strapping issue, particularly in light of the backlash. We will need that same kind of moral clarity and courage as we live out the commitment we have made by a very large margin to adopt the 8th principle and to actively oppose racism and other oppressions, and as we continue our work on climate and housing and 2S LGBTQ+ issues. Knowing what to do isn't always obvious, as we found last fall when we canceled our 6-minute memoir amid the swirling controversy around one of the scheduled speakers. There were legitimate but conflicting values at stake in that decision. We need to keep talking about safety and risk and the demands of justice and prophetic discernment about what our principles require of us. I often think if we can't handle conflict and disagreement within our congregation, among people who love each other, who share key values, how can we imagine having much to offer to create more justice, equity, and compassion in the wider community where the divisions are deep and hatred and evil widely evident? Some of us in this congregation, certainly me, are immensely privileged. It would be easy when debate is heated and issues complex. For those of us for whom the status quo provides a pretty comfortable life to step back from the fray and remain silent. But we know that the status quo does not protect countless people, including many of our own members. We know that the rights of all of us are at stake when the rights of any of us are attacked. And then there's our principles. I admit that I may not have recognized this when I joined the church 20 years ago. But when I reread our principles, the call to justice is actually crystal clear. We promise to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, to affirm and promote the right of conscience in society at large, to affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence. We commit to affirm and promote the goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And then in 2021, our congregation adopted the 8th principle, which Marian will talk about in much greater detail. This is not a sideline religion. May we be strengthened and enlightened by memories of our past, not as nostalgia, but as sacred memories that remind us of who we are. Like our predecessors, may we be, as one of our hymns says, a people so bold, dismantling oppression and building a land of justice, peace, equity, and compassion. So may it be. Thank you. Our next hymn, It Sounds Along the Ages, has a special place in our church history. The hymn writer, Reverend William Channing Gannett, came from Rochester to participate in the first ordination service in this congregation in 1890. And when we celebrated our 50th anniversary in 1939, we again sang the hymn. Only the title has changed. Back then it was called The Word of God. Today it is called It, undefined, Sounds Along the Ages. Please rise as you're willing and able to sing hymn 187.
Song
Let's drop into a time of reflection and meditation. Our meditation this morning comes from Alondria Williams, a leader in our faith, calling upon the many ancestors of our faith who have transformed us, shaped what is possible for our movement, and challenged us to grow in community and loving accountability. Alondria left our faith too soon, but we were made better by E's love, dedication, and commitment to Unitarian Universalism. A bit about Alondria and their commitment to our faith. Alondria Williams served as co-monitor of the association alongside the Reverend Mr. Barb Grieve from August 2017 to June 2020. Alondria was an incomparable leader, joyous presence, and indomitable force in our Unitarian Universalist community and beyond. We will be forever grateful for Alondria's legacy in our faith tradition. Alondria was a member of the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is also where E grew up. Alondria was elected to the UUA Board of Trustees in 2016 and held a 6-year term on the Presidential Search Committee. E was a founding member of Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism Organizing Collective. This is from E's reflection called Honoring Our Ancestors. I invite you to drop into the quiet part of yourselves and welcome these words. We are part of the connective tissue that holds the legacy and future of our faith. We are the children of freedom fighters, visionaries, and radical liberal theologians. We are the phoenix rising out of the ashes of the McCarthy era and the civil rights movement, women's and queer liberation movements. We are the survivors and beneficiaries of youth-led and youth-focused beliefs and programming that encouraged us to be change makers, boundary pushers, and institutionalists all at the same time. We are and we will be the ministers, the religious educators, congregational presidents, organizer, and social change leaders our faith has led us to be. We wear our faith as tattoos on our bodies and in our hearts as testament to the blood, tears, dreams, and inspirations of our community, ancestors, and our elders. Let us light candles of community today, acknowledging and remembering all the ancestors among us, those who have changed us, shaped us, challenged us to become our dreams. Those ancestors who gave themselves to this beloved community. May each flame be a kindling of those spirits and the love that continues to move through our lives together. And let this candle lighting be our prayer. As we process, I invite us to sing Spirit of Life, gently reminding us of the spirits among us today. Now is the time in our service where we share the joys and the sorrows of beloved community. If you have a joy or a sorrow to share on a Sunday morning, I invite you to drop by our Joys and Sorrows table lit with a red candle and leave your joy and sorrow there to share during service. Or you can click on the front page of our website. There is a button, Joys and Sorrows, and it will arrive magically here for us to share. I have a sorrow this morning from John Green. John shares that this week a very good friend of mine died. I had the opportunity to spend a few days with him before his passing, which was gracious, but it came too soon. Dr. Jim LaMontagne will be sadly missed. John, we hold you in our hearts today as you grieve your dear friend. May Jim's memory be a blessing. I have a gratitude from David McLaughlin this morning, and David writes, "As I go forward in my cancer journey, I want to express my thanks and gratitude to Mary Ellen Scanlon for stepping up to be my primary caregiver, supporter, and mate. Without her, I would be cast adrift and floundering. With her, I have hope for the future as I enter the next step of the process." And David writes, "Bring it on." David and Mary Ellen, I know you are joining us online this morning, and we are with you, and you are with us, and we join you in the spirit of Bring It On. We have a joy from Sue Stewart Green and John Green. Sue Stewart Green is our congregational president, Sue. And they are sharing, and this is perfect for Anniversary Sunday, they are celebrating 34 years of being married, and they were married. This goes back to one of Bill's moments. They were married at the Lock Street version of our congregation. So congratulations. We wish you many more. We wish you many more. I know, and we know, that there are joys and sorrows among us that are too tender yet to share. We hold those among us in the presence of beloved community, reminding each other that we are never alone. We need more bottle caps for our Spring Festival event. Okay, there we go. So, it is my great privilege to share with you this morning about the present. I was tasked to talk with you about the present moment, and I've been with you for just about 3 years now, completing my 3rd year. When I arrived in Hamilton 3 years ago, we were still deep inside the pandemic. We were months away from any relaxation of COVID restrictions. Our first attempt to open the sanctuary was short-lived. Omicron arrived, and we gently and lovingly pivoted again to online worship until it was time to gather safely again in person. It was a curious time to begin a ministry. It was interesting. Almost none of us knew the way forward into the future. None of us really knew the right way out of a global pandemic. None of us exactly knew what to do. But here's what I did know. I knew that you were hungry for connection and community, eager to worship together and live passionately into the mission of the congregation. You were excited to embrace the future. And you did. You excitedly embraced interim ministry with graciousness, and you were patient teachers inviting me into community with trust and curiosity. Together, we experimented with finding a way through a pandemic. I remember fondly in gathering in 2021. Worship was on Zoom, and then we had an open house walkthrough. You brought water to our building for water communion and visited with our social justice team, the 8th principal team, met with Tim and the Children and Youth Religious Exploration Program team, and you got to see all the marvelous updates to our building. And I got to meet you. It was important to me that that first service embody my commitment to you and our shared ministry. We were going to do this together, sharing the best of ourselves, our passion for this congregation, and our commitment to justice. We organized the day as a festival and celebration of community, a flash of hope and connection in the presence of the pandemic. That seed has blossomed and branched into new connections, and we have a new family of multi-generational ministries, a spring festival that celebrates community, invites our neighbors, community partners, and all of Hamilton to join us on our beautiful campus for springtime fun and festivities. That was possible because of the love, joy, and commitment that is alive at the heart of this congregation. This year, we're doing much more to reach out to our wider community and doing it in that same spirit of joy, justice, and appreciation for each other and the world. So, let us celebrate the present moment, how far we've come, the connections, the community we created together during this wonderful season of transition, transformation, and experimentation. So, I thought we might make this a bit interactive. I have 10 things to share with you. So each time I hit on the next one, raise your hand. So, one, yes, one. While many congregations throughout our faith have shrunk, downsized, and had to radically reimagine their futures in response to dwindling attendance, First Hamilton, in spite of a longer lockdown period, has maintained membership and secured financial stability. The congregation is poised for a future that will easily transcend the experience of the pandemic. You have shown up powerfully and boldly to build a community of mission and vision, a place of belonging and justice in a world that is seeking respite and meaning. Two, you've embraced a model of shared ministry and the practice of shared leadership that enhances our commitments, ensures that our deeply collaborative work is rooted in relationship and rooted in our values. Shared ministry invites all of us to own the mission and the ministries of the congregation and to contribute to the fulfillment in the world. Three, you've made significant upgrades to your building and improved the accessibility of our spaces. It is marvelous. Number four, you created a new model of community care that invites all of us to the shared ministry of caring for each other, acts of love and justice among us in community. again, leaning into this model of shared ministry and taking ownership of the call to nurture each other. 5, we have welcomed new members, friends, and continue to recommit ourselves to practices of radical hospitality and the shared ministry of getting to know each other and bringing all of us into belonging. 6, you've embraced a practice of deep listening through listening circles as a tool for building relationships and navigating conflict and discovering who you wish to become. These listening circles, initiated by the interim transition team, carried forward by the Ministerial Search Committee, and utilized by our Social Justice Hub and Board to support feedback paths to address concerns of the membership of the congregation. It is a portal through which conflicts becomes transformed into purpose. 7, in the wake of the pandemic, you've expanded your online presence and embraced the possibilities of an online, inclusive, and connectional community in our digital spaces. This is something to be proud of. 8, new forms of family ministry that engage and involve children, youth, parents, grandparents, and caregivers in faith formation and building community. You have experimented with new ways to be in relationship and build community across the generations. Number 9, thank you. You have called a ministerial search committee forward and empowered them with the sacred process of identifying a candidate for your next settled ministry. And finally, number 10, this is the last one, so let's go big. 10. Finally, and it's a theme this morning, the overwhelming affirmation of the 8th principle and a collective commitment to anti-racism and anti-oppression practice in the life of the congregation. You've crossed a new threshold in this commitment, and I believe it is the keystone of your next strategic action plan. We'll see. You'll let me know. Those are just 10 things. And I could name so many more, so many marvelous things we've done together in just these 3 years. When people ask me why I feel so optimistic about the future of First Hamilton, I reflect on what I have witnessed and learned these past 3 years. First Hamilton is a community that is creative, resilient, dedicated, and courageous. A community that is eager to meet the future and notices the possibilities of our Unitarian, Universalist faith to change people's lives and to change the world. You should be so proud of what has happened in this short amount of time. I am so proud of you. You are amazing. May it be so, and blessed be. This is the time in our service when we'll receive the offering and the gifts of the congregation. Please give generously and joyfully, and of the love born of your heart.
I hear a mother's voice in prayer, a sister's voice in song, father's voice in praise, a child's voice alone. God plucks the strings and the heart plays her song. We are the instruments whose memories are strong. I hear a distant call, a choir's reverent phrase, an angel's voice alone guides us through dark days. The instruments of hope are the voices of the strong. We tell the stories, the memories in song. One voice joined together, one voice raised in song. Bound by beauty, we are the instruments, the memories, the song. And when we've lost our way, a voice will lead us home. A baby's lonely cry is soothed by a mother's song. There is no greater power than when a choir sings amen. One voice together will lead us home again. One voice joined together, one voice raised in song. Instruments, the memories, the song. One voice joined together, one voice raised in song. Bound by beauty, we are the instruments, the memories, the song. We are the instruments, the memories, the
We offer gratitude for these gifts to support the ministries and the building of beloved community.
Hi, my name is Marianne Sewell Snade. I'm on the board, and I lead the 8th Principal Group. I'm really sorry that we are missing some of our 8 members today. Hopefully they're watching online, Nancy and Richard and Beverly and Tim. But we know that a few of them are sick, and I think Tim is away. So looking ahead to the future in love, putting our love into action. And the 8th Principal Group meets every month, and we are a very thoughtful group. We've spent a lot of time, sometimes avoiding the agenda, to talk about our feelings and our thoughts around moving ahead, being inclusive, and considering everyone, no matter their circumstance. And that is our purpose. And that is what our congregation is hoping to do in the future, to look forward in love, putting our love into action. So our congregation adopted the 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism in October of 21. So we've been working towards this for 3 years. In doing so, the congregation covenants to affirm and promote individual and communal action that accountably dismantles racism and systemic barriers to full inclusion in ourselves and in our institutions. To fulfill this covenant, we seek to strengthen our anti-oppression work, to ensure inclusive practice, and to identify and reduce barriers to the full participation of people who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, people of diverse ancestries, ethnicities, people from the Two-Spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual communities, and people living with disabilities. In February of 2023, the board hired Pauline Kajura, co-director of Intersecting Anti-Racism Oppression Consultant, to conduct an audit. And I'm so thrilled that Pauline is with us today. And Pauline's back there. Several of you participated in filling out the audit that she prepared. And as a result, Pauline came forward with 13 recommendations for our congregation and presented these to the board. She has met with several groups about the audit, and the 8th Principal Group has developed an action plan from these recommendations, and that is what we have been working on. One of Pauline's first recommendations was to document our successes and our actions, our milestones to date that various groups in our congregations have been involved in. So what we have asked is that each group in the church prepare and give us an outline of successes and milestones working on the 8th principle so far. And we have those documented. You're going to see them in a minute. So we feel we've accomplished a lot, and we honor what we have accomplished so far over the last 3 years, knowing that there's a lot more to be done. This is a long process, and even those in our group, we continually struggle with our thoughts and ideas and how to proceed. So this is an ongoing process. So you may have noticed a slideshow when you were coming in that is a list of what the different organizations have given us as to what they see their accomplishments so far. So if you would run that for us again, that would be wonderful. It's also on paper, if anybody wanted a copy of it. We have it at the back as well. Oh. Do you mind starting it at the beginning? Are you able to do that? We've missed one, or I can talk about it. Okay, some examples of our successes and actions over the last 3 years. So activism, notice that we've been very involved in a lot of different activities. In some cases, we've had our banner with us at the rallies.
And we'd like to just say thank you. Sorry to interrupt. That was our rally. We are very grateful for participation.
Oh, okay.
That's
Good.
a joy.
And you brought signs.
All the signs are for the church at the back, right there. Protecting the fence.
Oh, at the back. Okay, this is something else that we've just been involved in. You can have a look at the posters at the back.
The Rainbow Week rally, sorry, I did organize that. Those signs are a gift from the rally for your participation to your, from Key Flag Canada.
Okay. So our board approved that they could take the banner to this occasion. The affordable housing team, you know that we have been working and provided a lot of money to Sacagawea, fundraising for them since 2016. And for the third time in 8 years, our speaker for the National Housing Day service in 2023 was BIPOC. Chalice groups, a lot of you have been involved in chalice groups, and we are discuss Article 2 values through anti-oppression, anti-racist lenses. Children and youth, we're very aware of the individual, what they like to be called, what their preferences are. Listen to what everyone has to say, make spaces for other voices, make sure everyone has a role in what is happening. And we recently had a service with a puppet show led by Tim, focused on the 8th principle. And Tim wrote a story, Jet Pig Fueled by Love. Some of you would have been here to see that. Justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, generosity, all surrounding love. And the library, we've got over 30 recent publications. We're looking for more books. If you have any suggestions around the 8th principle, we'd be very happy to have them. And the church website, we now have added to the social justice links that provide weekly all-church emails concerning the 8th principle, and different things are posted. Climate action, March theme in 2024 was climate justice, looking at the impacts of climate change on intergenerational fairness and on racialized and low-income communities. And the coming of age, Beverly Horton and members of the social justice-led discussions concerning the 8th principle. Eva Rothwell, we have over 20 congregants that help there. We have a variety of people that come from many, many countries, a lot of new Canadians that have just come to Canada. And we are very aware, we try to be inconsiderate of their needs and model the 8th principle in our actions. And a book club, they've designed a bookmark including the words of the 8th principle with a question to reflect on as they read each month's selection. And there were 2 different study groups. I enjoyed being in one of them. online and in person that Jamie and Tim led, and I feel that they were certainly very worthwhile. And the music team often chooses music that reflects the eighth principle. And we support drum, diverse, revolutionary, Unitarian, Universalist, multicultural ministries, and our eighth principle group donated to that as well as other groups. Special days of recognition, we acknowledge in our worship services to help us recognize and be aware of special days and people that we want to be mindful of. Story for all ages. Often books are chosen to reflect the eighth principle. Trip to Six Nations. We're looking at Strategic Action Committee. The eighth principle is working with this group as well to build greater diversity in our congregation through a combination of reflection, education, careful listening, compassion, and targeted action. And the trip to Six Nations, 21 of us went for the day. It was a very informative day, going to the museum. We saw the residential school. We didn't go in, but we saw it. We had lunch. We met a lot of Indigenous people. Some of the young people, they spoke to us in their language, and we felt that was a very worthwhile day. And the board supported it financially if need be. Visitor and congregant engagement. The rainbow stripe on the name tags has been replaced with an inclusion stripe representing BIPOC and LGBTQ+. Pronouns are printed on the name tags to represent, so each person can choose what they would like and feel included. Widening the Circle Study Group. Reverend Victoria and Tim offered online sessions from an original course, a UUA course, to about 20 of our congregants, and 10 from the Peterborough Fellowship. And some of us heard Reverend Julie Stoneberg speak last year at the conference. And we've had workshops and learning, Paula Cole-Jones workshop, CB Beal services and webinars. I know quite a few of you appreciated those. Bystanders training, Transforming Hearts, collective curriculum. And Zoomers and Boomers, they invited Vernon to share his personal memories. I think he's spoken at a listening circle here as well, to understand his culture, and we certainly appreciate hearing from people like him. So, as I say, we're honoring what has been done so far and looking ahead to the future. We realize there is more to do. Please feel free to talk to any members of our group or email them, the ones that aren't here, if you have ideas or suggestions. Or you can talk to any of the board members, because we are always looking for more thoughts on how we can move ahead with this. So we're going to sing the next hymn, the last hymn, and it's number 1017.
We're not going to sing. We're not going to sing. It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary. I am aware, Rachel tapped me on the shoulder and reminded me of the time, and I am aware of the time, and we want to make sure that we have time for everything this morning. And before I offer some very brief words of benediction, I do want to invite Gail forward from the Ministerial Search Committee to share a moment with us. So, this is good.
Thank you, Reverend Jamie. My name is Gail Rappold, and along with Mel Rutherford, I co-chair the Your Ministerial Search Committee with 5 other amazing people. Mel would be here to speak to you today, but he's out of the country for work this weekend. On April the 21st, the Ministerial Search Task Force brought you this service. And we explained that we were working through the second round of the ministerial search process. We want you to know that we did have applicants in round 2, and all were ministers who had not applied for settled ministry in the first round. They made the decision to seek a different ministry between December and March, so we're new to the process. The other things that are important for you to know are that of the 8 congregations in search for settled ministry, only 2 had any applicants at all. And our congregation was the only one who had applicants from any distance who would have to travel. Search wanted to share this information so that you understood that our congregation stood out, and that even in these competitive, difficult times, there were ministers who were prepared to travel to come here to be with us. Search and the congregation are in covenant to follow the procedures set out by UUA, as you know. So if we had a match, we could tell you about that once the candidate gave us permission. But until a couple of weeks later, and several steps more, we could not tell you that person's name or anything about them. They need to meet with our negotiating team, share back home with the place they are leaving, a criminal reference check. We could not release any information about them to you. And you too are covenant also not to attempt to elicit any information in this interim period. And I hope you heard that word, covenant. Reverend Jamie had to work through this process. She had to work through it with us and with Durango, their negotiating team. She delayed a week to tell us about her process in order to make space for us to tell you the unfortunate news that we were unsuccessful getting a match in the first round. So it was nearly 3 weeks before the Durango congregation got her name. So, where is the search task force in this process this morning? Well, your ministerial search task force, Mel, Karen, Jen, Angela, Mary Ellen, Beverly, and I, are unanimous in our excitement and enthusiasm to share that we have a candidate to bring to you for candidating week. They are coming from June 15th to 23rd. They will be our minister for that period, and Reverend Jamie will not be available. We will create a calendar of events that involve committees and the board, and lots of time for public engagement where you will get to meet this person and get to know them both in person and online. You have been patient with us and kind throughout this process, and we know that you can continue to do so. We promise we'll share details and introduce the candidate to you as soon as we possibly can. Right now, we can just share our excitement. However, as of today, each member of this congregation has an important role to play in this process too. leading up to our congregational call, which is a vote on Sunday, June 23rd after the service. Please put this date in your calendar and plan to attend either online or in person. Our bylaws require that 40% of the congregation be present for the call. That means at least 85 of you must be present for this to work. As Bill Fulton and I shared with you in a recent service about UU shared ministry a few weeks ago, the minister is called by the congregation. Unlike other staff positions in our church, who are hired by the board, the minister's call is a covenantal relationship of shared ministry, shared between the minister and you, the members of this congregation. Your vote on June the 23rd is a commitment to be in covenant, to share ministry with this minister. There will be lots of details about this and chances to answer your questions over the next few weeks. And finally, in April of last year, at the commitment ceremony, the 7 of us on the Ministerial Search Task Force accepted the sacred responsibility charged and entrusted by you to lead this congregation into the future, guided by love, integrity, and justice. In this ceremony, you, the congregation, covenant to support the Ministerial Search Task Force and to follow the path of love, integrity, and justice with us. You offered your gratitude for our service and your support and your trust. Thank you for your trust in us. For those on the Ministerial Task Force here this morning, we're thrilled to share our excitement with you and share anything we can tell you about the process. Please feel free to call or email any of us over the coming weeks. Thank you.
As we take leave this morning, I offer these closing words from Robin Wall Kimmerer from Braiding Sweetgrass. We are showered every day with gifts, but they are not meant for us to keep. Their life is in their movement, the inhale and exhale of our shared breath. Our work and our joy is to pass it along, the gift, to pass along the gift and to trust that what we put out into the universe will always come back. Go, beloveds, rejoicing in gratitude and celebration for the gifts of this community. May this beloved community continue to share the love and justice and the hope of Unitarian Universalism with the world that we are seeking. A world abundant in love, a world abundant in belonging, and a world abundant in justice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the fire in our hearts. Thank you for being with us today. Until we meet again.
Look at all the work we've done, everybody showing up.